Welcome to Thursday, February 20th, 2025. Well, can't believe we're almost 3 complete weeks into the month of February already. What does the next segment of weather look like? Well, the pattern is changing. It's going to kind of get a slow start, but as we go on here, there's going to be a shift across all of the lower 48 over the next 5 to 7 days that will get us out of this Arctic scene, like you see there on the right side with the sundog and bitter cold temperatures, as a warming trend will commence. Now, the Arctic air retreat is going to be slow at first. It gets accelerated over the weekend. So there's still going to be a ton of winter weather across the nation, the central and eastern part of the United States, going through a lot of winter weather as the Arctic air is going to be slow to retreat. And also the Arctic air is so extensive and so large, the area, that it's just going to take a while for things to happen. But it's starting to happen now. The Pacific wave we're watching today is currently bringing snow to parts of Utah, Idaho, western and southwestern Wyoming. A little system coming off the Pacific Northwest coast will be a weather maker today in those areas. We are going to be warmer. But as we always say, when Arctic air leaves, you're going to have an episode of wind. Now, I think the wind today, tomorrow, and even into Saturday isn't going to be bad in the wind-prone areas, but it will as we get into Sunday and Monday. So the weekend, the middle to the end of the weekend, we'll have some wind episodes, unfortunately, to contend with. The good thing is that when it does get Arctic like this, you don't have much wind, but that'll go away, but it does make it warmer. We really only have one system coming through the west next week, a quick moving Pacific front that'll come through late Tuesday and Wednesday. That'll make for wind that might bring a little bit of weather, but it really isn't going to mean much. So a lot of the weekend, a lot of next week, we don't have a lot going on. And that's really going to be true across most of the country as Pacific air floods the nation, and temperatures will be able to rebound for most of the United States, giving us relief from this very cold February pattern. We're still watching that early March system as a potential and something that next week we'll just keep an eye on and see what evolves. But once we go through this quiet period, do expect the weather to readjust and start to bring more active weather back into the western United States again. So it's a break in the weather pattern, not a trend. Lots of rosy finches in South Park, Colorado, as you can see. The birds really gorging on their food if you put it out for them. It's not easy on them either with all of this cold. And if you want to see a classic inversion from the power plant there in Glen Rock, Wyoming, you can see the very, very cold temperatures there along the North Platte River creating an inversion. And you can see it with the steam of the coming out of the power plant. And you'll see this a lot of times when we have these Arctic air masses settling into the river valleys. As you take a look across the nation, again, it looks a lot like the map yesterday. From border to border, we have advisories for severe cold. These are freeze warnings for North Florida and South Georgia. Now, you might notice the green on the map here. The green on the map that you see in southern Montana, the Sheridan area here, Washington, Oregon. This is for snowmelt that could cause some localized flooding because of the deep snowpack that's up there. And there it is. This is the snowfall over the last 2 weeks across southern Montana, northern Wyoming here. There's basically I don't want to call it a glacier, but it's kind of like a plains glacier that is formed up here. And with the warm-up coming and this extensive snow cover and the fact that those areas have been cold soaked with sub-zero temperatures for multiple days, you're just not going to see the water soak into the ground. It's going to run off. So they're going to have to keep an eye on creeks, rivers, and streams here for ice jamming, especially. That's what the green is for up in that part of Montana and far northern Wyoming with the warm-up that's coming. But you can see the last 2 weeks has been very productive with snowfall in many areas. We have a couple of snow holes here from areas that were in downsloping zones or Chinook zones where the snow just wasn't able to penetrate, but pretty extensive snow cover elsewhere. If you look at the snow and ice cover map through yesterday, you can see the southern extent of the snow across the U.S. Very impressive for this late into February. We'll do a regional look at snowpack tomorrow, but for the Wyoming snowpack, you can see that some of the key bigger drainages, the Wind, the Green River drainages, the upper North Platte, the lower North Platte, the Snake, they're all green and blue just along and west of where the divides are of the mountain ranges. So the snow very, very good. On the shadow of the Rockies, now snow's not as good, but these snowpack areas are certainly in reach of catching up as we get into March and April. The South Platte Basin, basically the Vidavoo Summit area in southeastern Wyoming, that snowpack has really suffered, as cross-country skiers know up there, although there's been a pretty significant increase here over the last couple of weeks. As La Nina continues to fade as we get into March and April, this area will see those numbers go up. It's good to see the blue and it's good to see the green there. Satellite photo this morning. This is the satellite photo to sense temperature, and you can see the Arctic air mass is still pretty impressive, covering a large area, at least where the satellite can see it. When we take a look at the temperatures that will be around or just before sunrise, anywhere you see gray, sub-zero temperatures. Anywhere you see the blue, still very far below zero. Below zero temperatures now stretching up into New England. Very impressive Arctic wave for February. The next system, there's that little guy right there. It's not a big system at all. On scale, it's small, but there's good moisture and good instability here. So there's going to be an area of snowfall, as I'll show you in a minute, along the path of this low today through this evening across southern Idaho, northern Utah, southwestern and south central Wyoming, and into the mountains of central and northern Colorado. But this is sort of the last Pacific wave in a bit. What we've had in this Arctic outbreak is Arctic air banked up against the divide with Pacific systems coming through at the same time. And that's why the snow in the mountains has been so tremendous. And then the Arctic conditions on the plains. There it is at 500 millibars, that little low there near Salt Lake. The Arctic, deep Arctic pattern is beginning to shift eastward finally. And then by Sunday, we really see a zonal flow across the U.S., warming everybody up. So that's really good. But there's a lot of cold air still left up in the higher northern latitudes, as you can see there with the gray colors north of Hudson Bay there. So we have to watch this in the weeks ahead because that could still be a player. When we take a look at the expected moisture between now and tomorrow and into Friday, you can see right along that path of the low, that's some pretty impressive moisture there. So Interstate 80 along this route here, going to have some travel concerns over the next 24 to 30 hours or so. So travelers keep that in mind. The mountain passes of Colorado as well and into Utah. Then you get further east out into the plains, there's not much. There's a little dart here of moisture that comes along the Colorado-Palmer divide. So Denver to Colorado Springs there along the divide, along I-70 there, you may end up with some snow showers as this wave comes on through. But elsewhere, as you get further east on the plains, not much going on, and that's what the snowfall looks like there. When we take a look at the wind forecast, the wind gusts through Saturday morning, they're not bad. Now, up here in Montana, there's the start of the winds starting to crank up there, but there's really not a lot of wind today, tomorrow, or Friday into Saturday morning. But as the Arctic air mass gets further east, we see the jet stream winds increasing. You're going to see the winds get cranked up as we get into Sunday and Monday and Tuesday of next week. So the wind is coming, just will be delayed a little bit. So it's something to watch for over the weekend. If you look at temperature anomalies, by Saturday, they really warm up across Canada, across the west. The Arctic air is getting weaker. It's getting modified, but it's still very impressive. Look at that anomaly down there in Texas and Mexico. So still, even into the weekend, a lot of the U.S. east of the Rockies will still be very cold and very wintry. But look what happens by Monday. The anomaly really warms up. So temperatures are going to rebound, and we're going to be melting some snow and ice away rather quickly, but where the snow is deeper, it's going to be slower, obviously, to melt on off. So does this mean spring is here? No, doesn't mean it at all. It's just a respite. As we look at what happens going forward next week, here's that next little ripple. This comes in late Tuesday into Wednesday morning. It comes off the Pacific, goes across Montana, parts of Wyoming, into the Dakotas. So this wave may produce a little bit of weather. Likely wind, some snow in the mountains, maybe a little bit of snow on the plains. This is likely going to amplify, though, and become a bigger storm system for the Great Lakes by late next week and next weekend. So this could be a weather maker for those folks. This wave in the Gulf of Alaska ends up being a player later on. If we go a little bit further out, by late next week, this is by Thursday night of next week, we do have a low breaking off from this guy up here. Could see a little bit of rain in California. This could cause a little bit of wind. We'll need to watch that. But you can see that most of the systems are heading into the Great Lakes and the east for the stormy weather next week to be in this part of the nation here. This is the guy that will come in by next weekend and take a dive towards the coast. There it is. So this is by next Sunday, March 2nd. So this is the system for the first week of March. These two systems working together that we'll need to keep an eye on. So we'll be able to catch a break. Afterwards, things get busy again. Have yourself a very good Thursday.